News.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KVNU.
KVNU News Time is 4:05. I'm Bill Walter with this news update brought to you by U&I Furniture. A 21-year-old North Logan man convicted of sexually assaulting several teens while providing them alcohol is headed to prison. Peyton Hendershot was given the maximum sentence after apologizing for the pain he had caused. Hendershot was sentenced during a virtual hearing in First District Court this morning. He previously accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 2 counts of forcible sodomy and furnishing alcohol to a minor. Hendershot was arrested in February after one of the juvenile victims reported being sexually assaulted by Hendershot last summer. The defendant was a friend of a friend to the victim. As Cache County Sheriff's deputies investigated, they uncovered 5 additional teenage juveniles that also reported being victimized by Hendershot. The girls and boy described similar incidents of being forcibly raped or molested while trying to resist. Many indicated that the crimes took place while they were under the influence of alcohol and were unable to fight off the perpetrator. During today's sentencing, Public Defender Joseph Saxton asked the court to send Hendershot to jail instead of prison so he could continue to seek treatment. He said his client's behavior stemmed from drug and alcohol abuse. Cache County Deputy Attorney Griffin Hazard expressed concern with the number of assaults and victims. He said the defendant appeared to have preyed on the victims. Judge Brandon Maynard agreed with Hazard and said he was struck by the offensive nature of the crimes. He sentenced Hendershot to 1 to 15 years in prison, noting that he would recommend that the state parole board give the defendant credit for the 126 days already served. KVNU News Time is 4:07. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, overnight low around 60, and then mostly sunny, hot upper 90s, around 97 tomorrow, and then back into the low 90s on Wednesday. Well, we've been in the 80s today, just like yesterday. 87 has been our high. It's 86 right now at KVNU. Attention homeowners, you may have noticed the ground shift after your foundation has been poured, causing your house to sink or settle. Protect your investment from issues before they happen. Polylift concrete raising and piering will stabilize, lift, and eliminate further settling by using Magnum piering products to save you big money down the road. Polylift concrete raising and piering, the foundation lifting experts. Visit poly-lift.com to schedule your free assessment or call or text 435-999-9309. Polylift is locally owned and operated.
U&I Furniture just acquired an entire showroom of furniture from the Las Vegas Furniture Market. Best Furniture, an American-made furniture company, delivered to U&I sectionals, sofas, recliners, lift chairs, accent chairs, ottomans, benches, and a whole lot more. These are one-time deals that will not be repeated, so shop early for the best selection. It really is just another reason that you'll always find a better buy at U&I Furniture. U&I Furniture, 28 West, 1st North in downtown Logan.
KVNU News Time is 4:08. Extreme drought has brought abnormally high temperatures across the western states this week, and normally temperate Utah has not escaped the sizzling heat. With temperatures rising well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, many experts wondered aloud if Utah's power grid could withstand the stress. Recent problems in Texas and California were cited in a study presented to the Utah Legislature's Public Utilities Energy Technology Committee. The report found that the state's power provider might not be able to avoid blackouts in a period of extreme heat. Christine Cruz is a meteorologist from the National Weather Service in Salt Lake City, and she says the forecast is not optimistic.
We had a temperature of 107 in Utah in this Salt Lake City in this stretch, and that ties our all-time high temperature record. Those temperatures are normally in July. This has been almost unprecedented heat for June.
The report found that when Utah sees summer temperatures like its neighbors in Nevada and Arizona, its grid does not have enough spinning or reverse capacity or the interconnectivity to keep the lights and AC on in an extended heat wave. Now, Jeff Poussin is climate patrol program manager with Clean Energy Utah. He says urban planners need to better account for climate change as they build the state's towns and cities.
This is the climate decade. What we decide to do now in the 2020s is going to dictate what kind of future we want to live, what kind of climate change future we want to live in.
Now, Poussin says that officials need to help Utahns do a better job of preparing to deal with extreme summer heats as well as the winter's cold. And a small plane crash that killed 2 people also sparked a wildfire west of Salt Lake City. State fire officials say the fire south of Grantsville had torched less than 1 square mile as of Sunday morning. The crash happened Thursday night when a small plane went down in Tooele County near Rush Valley. It was not immediately clear what caused it. The National Transportation Safety Board says 2 people died in that crash. KVNU News Time is 4:11. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com.
Local news and the best talk. News Talk KVNU.
Trouble with pain, sleep, or anxiety? Want better health? Try CBD7, the CBD experts. You simply can't get this water-soluble CBD at grocery, convenience, or health food stores. Water-soluble CBD7 absorbs 15 times better and tastes great. CBD7 has the only clinically proven formula with real measurable results. Many feel better in minutes. CBD7 is not a drug and has no side effects. Other CBDs just can't do all that. Visit CBD7 today. Learn about CBD and try our best for free.
Oh, little piggy! Let me in or I'll blow this building down!
Nice try, Wolfie, but this here building's made from steel.
All right then, here goes! Gosh, that didn't work.
A building from Northern Steel Buildings will keep out the big bad wolf, and they don't break the piggy bank. Visit northernsteelbuildings.com to see their quality work or call 435-677-7300. Northern Steel Buildings. Value from concept to construction.
Did you get a landscape plan and now wonder what's next? You need Canyon Landscaping. They can build any plan into a signature landscape. Since 1999, their team has viewed educating clients as a crucial part of every project. This ensures customers get the best finished landscape for their specific site. No 2 sites are the same, so be sure to come to the experts with expertise and knowledge of delivering on any landscape plan. Call 752-3838 or go to canyonlandscaping.com. Canyon Landscaping. Look for the leaf.
It's a time of tremendous uncertainty for everyone, but some things haven't changed. Stomach cancer is still a leading cause of cancer death worldwide. More than 1 million people will be diagnosed this year alone, and it's vital to know your risks and learn ways to prevent it. It's also critical for cancer patients to protect themselves from all viruses. No Stomach for Cancer encourages you to listen to medical experts to understand your risks. Find out more about COVID-19 at cancer.gov and learn more about your risks for stomach cancer at nostomachforcancer.org.
For the people.
We are waiting with bated breath for news from the Cache Republican Party meeting an executive committee tonight.
With Jason Williams.
And I'm really excited about this next segment. We have 2 guests here in studio. We're going to talk about something that we've talked about many times here on the show, but from a bit of a different angle.
Weekday afternoons from 4 till 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People, hour 1 of today's show. It is Monday, June 21st. I'm Jason Williams. Bill Walter here in the studio as well. It is a cool, frigid 86 degrees here at the Radio Ranch right now. And that seems, I don't know, I actually felt like it was hotter today.
Where's that sweater?
I thought it was maybe worse today than some of those days last week when we were in the 90s, high 90s.
Yeah.
But,
well, the sun is very bright.
Yeah,
today.
it's. I think it's just no air movement, very little air movement. I don't know. This is 86 though. We're at least getting closer for today.
Maybe that's what October's going to be.
Maybe
mid 80s.
That is. We're at least within 10 degrees of an average
at 86.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this is more
20 degrees over.
This is closer to what where it is on the latter part of June around the summer solstice.
Oh, sure. That's speaking of that, first day of summer.
Yeah, first official. I guess it arrived last evening sometime.
Yeah, I don't really know when that switch is thrown on the seasonal changes, but
yeah, and I don't hear anything.
First official day of summer.
You don't hear like a trumpet sound or anything, or
that's
or you hear a whoosh sound or anything like that. It just arrives.
Not to be a downer, too. First official day of days now getting shorter.
That's right.
Boo. I try not to think about it, but we've got so many great months ahead of us. There's something I've never lost this. I remember, we all remember this from grade school. If you attended something other than a year-round school, there was just something about June, July, and August that was just magical. The school's out. You feel like you can do anything. You feel like it'll last forever. Thoughts of the county fair and that back-to-school day and school clothes shopping are just so far from the front of your mind in June as the summer really gets rolling. And I've held on to a little bit of that as an adult, despite the fact that it's an embarrassingly long time since I actually had summers off. I still, when you see the kids out in the middle of the day headed to the splash pad or you drive past the water park or whatever it is, there's something about summer that just, I think, it gets everybody thinking more about fun things to do and weekend trips and being outdoors. And it's nice. But with that in mind, we're going to be talking about this a lot this hour. We'll have highlights from the governor's monthly news conference in which he just by detail spells out just how bad it is here in Utah. I think it's easy for a lot of us to think, it's... we've been through droughts before, and we have. This is a very, very unique situation. Not a first. It's a first in a lot of lifetimes. But
many decades, yes.
Yeah. Driest, hottest year on record last year. We're going to break that this year. We're going to set a new record, if we haven't already. I think it was no rain reported in Alta. Alta in 2020 saw a trace of rain and then basically caught fire every week for the rest of the summer. No rain, not even a trace in Alta at the same time this year. It's pretty dire out there. And with that in mind, those of you who may have trips planned, to be honest with you, why anyone would head south right now is beyond me. But I know a lot of folks who do.
Some people are just into self-torture.
When temperatures are this high, I'm not going anywhere but north or my basement. This is, but a lot of people do, and I know there's a lot of outdoor recreation in southern Utah that draws a lot of attention from here in northern Utah even. But if you're headed down there, some news. First off, if you're headed down to a reservoir anywhere in southern Utah, you may want to check the conditions out first.
Make sure they haven't dried up.
Yeah. Make sure.
They're all down. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was a friend of mine actually turned away from. He wasn't turned away. He chose to turn away from Lake Powell after making the drive. He had somehow missed all of this news. Got down there, his boat wasn't going to be an option for them, and they didn't have anything else to do. So they stayed the night at a nearby hotel somewhere on their way back, and then just made the trip back and went camping somewhere up here. Check out the conditions first if you have plans to head south. But some news just minutes ago that could affect or should affect any plans you have if you're headed to the southern part of the state for any reason. San Pete County Fire Warden Tom Peterson told Fox 13's Ben Winslow about 10 minutes ago when Winslow tweeted this out, said, "We have right now the potential for one of the largest fires that Utah has seen. The water on the mountain is gone, the snowpack he's talking to down there, and there's not a lot anyway, even in a good year, but it's gone." He said farmers are already running out of water, and they're just on their first crops. And he said the situation is dire. That was, again, San Pete County Fire Warden Tom Peterson. And with that news, and expect this to be coming our way eventually. I I almost guarantee we're under the same restrictions by the 24th. But there's a chance, I guess, before the 4th. I don't know. And we'll talk about that more later on. A little game of pass the buck happening in Utah between cities, counties, the legislature, and the governor's office. Everyone claiming they can't take any action to restrict fireworks beyond state lands and unincorporated areas. And everyone saying it's the other political body's fault. But we'll talk about who's actually right in all of this, and also ask the question why they're not doing anything about it if the cities are supposed to have this flexibility. Anyway, so Stage 2 is where southern Utah is right now. Sanpete and Wasatch County specifically have been moved to Stage 2 fire restrictions. It's expected before the end of the week. The rest of southern Utah counties, the other two, will be in the same category. Stage 2 is, so we're all at Stage 1 right now, and that is basically where you shouldn't be burning anything in certain areas. In some areas where you can burn, it should only be an improved campfire at an official camp. I'm not talking about a ring of rocks. I'm talking a buried, installed by the Forest Service campsite. Fireworks, of course, a horrible idea out there in the mountains. Smoking outside of a car, not a great idea, or outside of an enclosed structure of some kind. That's Stage 1. So what's different at Stage 2? Basically all of the same thing, but dial is clicked a little bit up, meaning it's an outright ban on campfires. So basically, southern half of the state right now, if you are headed anywhere there for any outdoor recreation purposes, fires are off in southern Utah. Again, right now, this announcement today comes for Sanpete and Wasatch counties, but it's expected by the end of the week this Stage 2 elevation will hit the rest of southern Utah. And again, by the 24th, I would guess we'll be at Stage 2 up here in northern Utah. We're remaining at Stage 1 for the time being.
Yeah, that stand to reason, and unless something happens, like we get some moisture, but that does not nothing promising on the horizon.
Yeah, that's this was concerning. Another quote that was given to Fox 13's Ben Winslow that he tweeted out during this big press conference. Interim director of Utah's Forest and Fire Safety, which is basically a combination, a unified command between the State Forester's Office, coordinating with fire marshals around the state, and then, of course, land managers, everyone involved in this, even some representatives from agricultural communities that usually have a good idea of what soil conditions are like out there as they go out and do their farming. Interim Director Jamie Barnes said today that right now, this very moment, anything is on the table with what they're seeing fire condition-wise and potential fire behavior. What that means basically is that there are times, Bill, I know you're more familiar with this probably even than I am, but I know from just the news coverage over the years, talking about it here on the show over the years, there are certain conditions in which, should a wildfire break out, there's a game plan. There's, a way to say, it's not a windy day, things like that. The problem right now is that things are so dry. Interim Director Jamie Barnes of Utah FFSL said, right now a wildfire could potentially go wherever it wants because things are so dry. And the ability to fight a fire is so limited for so many reasons. One of those reasons, interestingly enough, reservoirs that oftentimes are used by helicopter firefighting.
Yeah, they
too
go
low.
And pull the water from that. Yeah,
they're too low. Apparently, they can only safely do that at certain depth. There's certain water. If the water is of a certain depth, then they can safely drop that bucket because it's an inexact thing. If you've ever seen it happen, they don't just skim the surface and fly off. They plunge this bucket into the water, let it sit and fill up, and then fly off. And if they have to dip down too low to do that, it becomes risky, and so they can't fight fires that way. So they're limited to air support and that red foam, period.
Yeah.
And every state is going to be needing that. So basically the concern right now is if a wildfire breaks out in Utah, the problem might not be necessarily so much what we usually worry about, weather conditions, things like that. The problem might be that we know everything is kindling, especially in the southern part of the state, and the resources to fight the fire we know are going to be limited as fires break out all over the West. So this is sort of a trifold concern here leading to this upping of restrictions today. And again, right now, this is only for Sanpete and Wasatch counties, but it's expected by the end of the week this will have spread to the rest of the southern half of the state, elevating fire restrictions to Stage 2, which again is basically just saying complete ban on campfires, period. Stage 1, campfires allowed at improved campgrounds. Stage 2, no setting anything on fire. We'll talk more about this with highlights from the governor's monthly news conference coming up in Hour 2, and we'll be back with more of Hour 1 here on For the People right after this.
Hi, this is Dr. Monty Carlson from Hyde Park Dental. I have some very exciting news. Dr. Brad Bills and I are going to partner to help make Hyde Park Dental one of the premier dental practices in Cache Valley. Dr. Bills will bring his experience in many areas to Hyde Park Dental. He loves treating children and provides comfortable, pain-free dentistry to everybody. I'm thrilled to have Dr. Bills at Hyde Park Dental. I know you will come to love and appreciate him as I do.
Hi, this is Dr. Brad Bills. I am as excited as Dr. Carlson to be joining forces. Like Dr. Carlson, I have practiced dentistry for over 30 years in the Valley and love helping my patients be healthy and have fantastic smiles. I also love being able to offer laser dentistry. Treatment with a laser is fast, pain-free, and often eliminates the need for a shot and no numb mouth. The excellent care you have received through Dr. Carlson and myself will continue with even more fantastic services and care. Call us today at Hyde Park Dental to schedule an appointment. Dr. Carlson and I are excited to see you.
You've talked about it for years.
Someday, I want to take down those trees, build a gazebo, and plant a garden.
For you, that someday is today.
Whole Tree Care is who Cache Valley trusts to prune, shape, and remove trees. Nobody has more experience. Fruit trees, dead trees, overgrown trees. Call Whole Tree Care. 760-6587. Ask about a radio discount. Whole Tree Care. 760-6587. Online at wholetreecare.com.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
This is Bruce Rigby of Cache Valley Bank. We are excited to support the Center Street Market in downtown Logan. Throughout the summer, every Wednesday starting at 8 a.m. will be a showcase of many of the wonderful businesses we have in Cache Valley and a great opportunity to shop local and support the great businesses we have here. Thank you for joining us. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Meet me downtown. Meet me in downtown Logan.
Welcome back. We'll be talking more about fires on the other side of the news, talking to an expert in fires. Why is this so concerned? We've had dry years before. We've had years where it was this dry, but in August. That's kind of a tell. That's if you want to know why the concern, it's June. This is something we normally see end of August, September, if at all, and it's only June. And so that's the primary reason. But we've had years where there was more fuel, that was more, taller grass that had grown more thickly or more densely in more areas, and then it would dry out like this end of August, September. So why is this year so much more concerning? On the other side of the news, we'll actually be speaking with an expert in this type of thing, fires in the West in general. And I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of a useless thing to talk about right now because we're in an immediate situation where, steps maybe have to be taken, but also when you're in that immediate situation, it's too late for a lot of steps. We can't unbuild homes that have been built up on, wildfire, urban, wildland interface zones that are, of the greatest risk of being a part of a wildfire should one break out. We can't go back and right now build bigger reservoirs. Of course, that wouldn't have helped necessarily this year. The size of the reservoirs isn't the problem. It was the lack of snow. We can't go back 30, 40 years and change some of our behavior as far as our influence on climate and climate change. So a lot of times these types of discussions I roll my eyes at because I'm thinking, okay, but we've got to do something now. The best thing we can do right now, honestly, is not set anything on fire and not use any more water than we absolutely have to. It's that simple. But that goes for industry, that goes for agriculture. It's not going to be enough just for homeowners to water their lawn one less time a week. That's not going to do it, especially if this is just year 2 of maybe a 4 or 5 year cycle or 7-year cycle. So we've got to think more long term, and we should be doing that now. But right now, focusing on the immediate causes me to generally say, great, fun discussion, but let's put that aside for now. Here's one exception to that, because we talk about this all the time. We've had them on the show before, but the organization is the Yellowstone to Uinta Connection. And it's this group of, there's a lot of different people, former forestry managers, former and current land managers, advocates, firefighters, fire marshals. There are a lot of very informed and experienced people who've made up this group. It's a nonprofit organization, and their only goal is education. And they've been talking for years about something that sounds like a Roland Emmerich movie, like 2012 or The Day After Tomorrow, these apocalypse movies. It sounds like that. But what they've been talking about is the potential out there for something called a mega fire. And that is a fire that, with the perfect conditions, which one of those conditions, by the way, is long-term drought, meaning drought for a multi-year cycle. So things get dry enough, trees get dry enough, soil gets dry enough. There's basically zero humidity in the air for the majority of the year for multiple years. And that has an effect, a long-term effect, and basically turns the entire thing into a matchbox. And by entire thing, the Yellowstone to Uinta Connection folks say, we're talking, Utah to California, Yellowstone to the Uintas, north and south, east and west. We've been too good at fighting wildfires for a long time. There was a comment made by former President Trump that he got mocked for, and maybe he deserved it in the way he said it, but it's unfortunate, and it was one of the few things that I actually defended him on in his term as president. But he said, it was an unfortunate way to say it, and then I understand why people laughed, but former President Trump said, when California, basically all of California was on fire last year, and he said, if only, we could go out and rake these forests. And, of course, everybody laughed because, you're not raking a forest. I get it, why he was mocked for that. But his point is one that we really all need to wrap our heads around. And he wasn't the first or the only person to say it. This is something that left-leaning environmental groups have been saying. This is something that forest managers and fire marshals have been saying. There's just, in general, a lot of fuel out there. But the problem is it's going to cost a lot of money to do something about it. It's not something that can be just turned over, at least smartly, to private industry and just say, hey, head out in the hills and do what you can. No, this would have to be effective, it would have to be carefully managed, and it would have to be managed on a multi-state level. Call that federal if you want, but you're going to have to coordinate your efforts in, say, Utah, Idaho, and Colorado to be effective and to do any good. If Utah does something and Idaho does something different, then you're basically not solving the problem. But the problem is basically that we've been so good at fighting wildfires over the years that our forests are ready to go up anyway. And because wildfires, again, are the only reason wildfires get fought or get put out is us. If we weren't here, wildfires would burn frequently for huge swaths of land, through huge swaths of land, and it's part of the process. It has an ability to refertilize the soil in different ways. It burns out old growth and encourages new, There are a lot of things that make wildfire actually a healthy part of a forest or a land area's life cycle. So we prevent that. The trouble is that no one wants to go out and intentionally set controlled fires because, what if something gets out of hand? A couple of years ago here in Utah, there was a big controversy. Now Governor Spencer Cox was lieutenant governor at the time, and he got in a bit of a back and forth with forest fighter with the National Forest Service firefighters for a comment he made. The fire was burning towards, I think it was the Spanish Fork area. I think it was that far north. It was burning towards the Spanish Fork area. The wind shifted it, and they said, well, let's let it burn. It's burning in the opposite direction now. That area has been on the list of controlled burns for a few years now. We just haven't gotten to it. The winds are blowing it towards, it's going to burn itself out before it gets to any populated area. Let's just let it burn. And everyone agreed this was a good idea. That night, the winds flipped. They'd actually stopped fighting this fire. It had grown in size. The winds flipped, something that rarely happens that quick. The flipped direction, 180 degrees, blowing it straight back towards populated areas there in the Spanish Fork area, Lehigh, etc. And the lieutenant governor, at the time now governor, criticized firefighters and fire managers for the decision to stop fighting the fire. They fired back and said, you were right there in the room, man. You nodded your head just along with us and said, sure, let's let it burn. Now it's going the opposite direction. So that's the risk. No one wants to take that. I understand that. It creates a pretty difficult dilemma. And that's on top of, that's every year. Throw this drought, on top of it, and it's pretty dire out there.
And especially when you throw in the fact that Utah's the fastest growing state in the country,
sure.
That more and more areas are going to be where people
Sure.
live, and unfortunately, those areas are going to be in line of sight of wildfires.
Oh yeah, that's. And if you've ever seen one of those maps, most areas you can Google it for your own area. Just look up it's called the Urban Wildland Interface. Or is it Urban Wildfire Interface? Now I'm blanking. I'm talking about this all the time. I'll find it for you. I'll link to it on our Facebook page. It'll show you a map for your area, even here in Cache Valley, showing you if you live in that. And what that means is you live in an area where if there is a wildfire near the canyons or up in the benches, it's going to burn a ring if left unchecked around the valley. It's difficult. And still, people got to live somewhere. We'll be back on the other side. We'll talk specifically about this with an expert in wildfires in the West. That's coming up after these headlines with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Thank you, Jason. KVNU News Time is 4:38. A 21-year-old Logan man has been ordered to serve more time behind bars for engaging in a sexual relationship with a 14-year-old girl. Tyler Henstra begged not to go back to jail as a judge sentenced him to serve 3 more months. Henstra was sentenced during a virtual hearing in First District Court this morning. He previously accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to 5 counts of unlawful sexual activity with a minor, all Class A misdemeanors. Henstra was arrested in December 2020 following an investigation by the Logan City Police Department. Officers had received a report of a juvenile who witnessed the defendant and the victim engage in sex at least once. Officers later interviewed Henstra. He admitted to having a consensual relationship with the teenage girl for several months. He claimed that the girl initially told him she was 18 and later 16. He acknowledged that the victim's sister later told him that the girl was actually 14, but he didn't believe anyone would find out about their relationship. During today's sentencing, Public Defender Joseph Saxton said his client has learned his lesson and complied with the court while on pretrial release. Cache County Deputy Attorney Griffin Hazard said Henstra did not realize the severity of the crimes. He asked the court to sentence the defendant to 90 days in jail. Henstra originally refused to make a statement. He later pleaded for mercy, saying he did not want to go back to jail. Judge Brandon Maynard sentenced Henstra to serve 90 days in jail, giving credit for 4 days previously served. He also ordered the defendant to report to the Cache County Jail by Tuesday night. The Navajo Nation has reported 6 new cases of COVID-19 and 3 more deaths. Tribal health officials released the latest numbers Saturday. The reservation that stretches from Utah into Arizona and New Mexico has seen at least 30,965 known cases of coronavirus since the pandemic began, and 1,346 deaths. The Navajo Department of Health on Friday lifted the nation's stay-at-home order, easing restrictions to allow in-person meetings and ceremonies of 25 people or fewer and drive-through gatherings of up to 100 vehicles. Face masks are required by everyone, whether or not they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19. And record visitation and long lines at Arches National Park are reviving a push for a reservation system. University of Utah Public Radio reports Arches is on track to have its busiest year ever, and that increase in visitation has caused the park to close its gates over 80 times so far in 2021. Other parks like Rocky Mountain in Colorado and Yosemite in California implemented reservation systems last year due to the pandemic and brought them back last summer. Moab and Grand County officials say a similar system could help alleviate congestion and protect Arches, but efforts to implement a timed entry system there have failed in the past. KVNU News Time is 4:41. KVNU weather for tonight, mostly clear, low around 60, 61 degrees, and then sunny, hot, around 97 tomorrow. We've been about 10 degrees cooler today. 87 has been our high. That's where we currently are here at KVNU. KVNU weather is brought to you by Beaver Creek Lodge. Have you lived here most or all of your life and never seen sights up Logan Canyon? Visit these sites and many others on a side-by-side rental from Beaver Creek Lodge. For more information, go to beavercreeklodge.com. For more details on these and other stories, visit CacheValleyDaily.com. Let's check Wall Street now with Edward Jones.
This is financial advisor Clayton McMurdy from Edward Jones, bringing you the closing financial market report for Monday, June 21st. U.S. equities finished notably higher today after posting the worst weekly performance in 8 months last week. The fears over the tighter Fed policy that spurred last week's drop appeared to fade slightly today, though we suspect Fed-induced volatility is far from over. Global equities were mixed as European markets rose while Asian stocks were broadly lower. 10-year yields finished higher after falling well below the 1.5% level last week. Value outperformed growth today with financials, energy, and materials leading, while technology was a laggard. Leadership from the cyclical sector signaled a positive tilt to investor sentiment to kick off the week. In equities, the Dow was up 587 points at 33,877. The NASDAQ was up 111 points at 14,141, and the S&P was up 58 points at 4,225. In bond markets, the 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 1.49%. In commodity markets, price of crude oil was up $1.85 at $73.14, and the spot price of gold was up $14.10 at $1,783.10. In stocks of local interest, Apple was up $1.84 at $132.30. Autoliv up $1.90 at $98.12. Campbell Soup up 28 cents at $45.55. GE up 41 cents at $13.19. Home Depot up $4.99 at $307.60. Lowe's up $2 at $188.88. Nucor was up $2.84 at $95.86. Procter & Gamble up $1.04 at $133.07. R.R. Donnelley up 40 cents at $6.57. Thermo Fisher up $1.09 at $483.56. Wells Fargo up $1.53 at $43.28. Walmart up $1.23 at $136.40. Zions was up $2.38 at $52.68. This has been today's financial market report, brought to you by Edward Jones, member SIPC, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 1309 North Main Street in Logan. If you'd like any additional information, please feel free to contact us at 435-753-0537 or visit any of our branches here in Cache Valley.
Pristine wilderness can still be found in the West, where creeks run freely and historic apple trees still bear fruit. Maple Creek Ranch features breathtaking canyon views and opportunities for real estate development. 2.5-acre lots are now available with adjacent wilderness areas that provide endless riding and recreational possibilities. So find your piece of paradise just 35 minutes from Logan at Maple Creek Ranch. Schedule your appointment online at maplecreekranch.net.
Projects outside go much better after a stop by Stevens Forest Products. Pick up bark, mulch, or compost by the bag for $1 or $2 less at Stevens, or buy it in bulk and save even more. Stevens is also your best source for flagstone, perfect for patios and walkways. Choose from 7 color choices. Pick up a few pieces or take home a pallet. Delivery options are available. Stevens is also home to over 5,000 in-stock railroad ties with prices beginning at $13.99. Stevens Forest Products, between Smithfield and Logan at 3277 North Main.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show Tuesday edition. The Democratic primary to decide who's going to be the New York City mayor is going on. What happens, Buck?
Well, if we get a Democrat here who's actually reasonably strong on backing law enforcement, it could be the beginning of the end of the defund the police narrative as something so important to Democrats. Could have big ramifications across the country, too. We'll get into that and more in the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
10 to 1 on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM at 610 AM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. With drought and wildfires on the mind, we're taking up a lot of time here on the show just because the news of the day dictates it. We're going to stick with this theme, at least for the foreseeable segment or two, because there's an upcoming presentation that should be very interesting to see. It's a presentation that will be conducted by Larissa Yokom, a USU professor who also happens to be an expert in fires, the history of fires, research into fires in the western United States. And so that's timely, to say the least. And she says her research shows some useful things that might help us should, again, like I said, this be like year 2 of a 7-year drought cycle. It's going to be ugly. This research could help. So KVNU's Craig Hislop reached out, and without delay, here's Craig.
Well, thank you, Jason. Tuesday, tomorrow, Utah State University Research Landscapes is hosting a virtual event. It's Fire in the West, Appreciating the Inevitable. It's held via Zoom. It will begin at 11:30 tomorrow morning, and in a few moments I'll tell you how you can find it. It sounds very timely to us with our ongoing drought and the regular red flag fire danger warnings that we've been under here recently. It's going to highlight the work of Larissa Yokom, an assistant professor in USU's Department of Wildland Resources, and she's good enough to join us today. And Dr. Yokom, living around here, we have come to know that fire can be a beneficial part of many ecosystems.
That's right, yes. You know, we think of fire as harmful to human communities. We see that in the news a lot, but as you just said, it can really help some ecosystems thrive, and we have examples of those types of ecosystems here in Utah. An example would be lodgepole pine, where some populations of lodgepole actually, their cones open with the heat of a fire, and that allows them to regenerate after a fire.
But in recent decades, we've had so many people who have moved into what we call the wildlife-urban interface, which has had the effect of setting the stage for more disaster fires that affect the places where we as Utahns live and work and play.
That's right. Yeah, the wildland-urban interface has grown a lot over the past few decades, and during the 20th century, we had very little fire compared to historical levels of fire. And so people moved into the wildland-urban interface thinking that fire was something we had kind of controlled. And now we're finding that that was a temporary situation, I think. So fire is starting to come back. We're seeing disaster fires. And understandably, people are worried about fire, burning their communities, their homes, and their watersheds, too. Up
higher in the mountains. So I think that that's something that, fire managers really are cognizant of, is how do we keep fire, the beneficial parts of fire that are good for ecosystems, and at the same time try to prevent fires that are damaging to human communities.
We heard you recently on a podcast. It was found at USU Research Landscapes website, and we learned something about fires in the West. We learned in the past few years, every western state has been hit by at least one wildfire that's been larger or at least as large as 500,000 acres. And that's every western state except Utah. And why is Utah different?
Oh, well, I think I may have misspoke on that. I don't think we've had over 500,000 acre fire in every western state, but we've had record-setting fires in most western states. Utah is, 2018 was a big fire year in forested areas for Utah. And there have been some large rangeland fires as well. But I think that's a good question, is whether we are just lucky so far, or whether there's something particular about Utah, perhaps the really steep slopes, for example, that would be a good reason that we haven't seen a 500,000 acre fire. I think there's probably not a good reason that we couldn't have one of those, and so we've probably just been lucky so far.
We understand you're going to talk about the fire triangle. Explain that and tell us how it can be controlled.
Okay, so the fire behavior triangle is a way to think about what controls fire behavior. And so there are three legs of the triangle. Weather is one of them. So that means that in hot, dry, windy conditions, fires behave more intensely. So flame lengths are longer, they are able to move more quickly. Topography is another leg of the triangle, and an example of how topography controls fire behavior is that fires tend to move more quickly going up steep slopes. And then the third leg of the triangle is fuel, and so that's the one leg of the triangle that we can control, and so that's where fuel treatments come in, things like prescribed fire or thinning out trees. And so, the idea is if we can reduce some of the fuels that are in the canopies of trees, for example, that might prevent fire from being able to burn through as a crown fire, which is fire up in the treetops. So that's the idea of, that's why fuel treatments are done, is that's the one leg of the fire behavior triangle that we have some influence over.
And we're talking to Dr. Larissa Yokom, an assistant professor in USU's Department of Wildland Resources. Tell us about your research and any findings you could share with us.
Yeah, we have actually quite a bit of research looking at fuel treatment effectiveness in Utah. So one of the projects, I work with several graduate students who are doing various projects, and one of them is looking at historical treatments, so including prescribed fire and thinning treatments, mastication, any kind of fuel reduction treatments, and fire polygons. So looking across the whole state of Utah, where have those things overlapped, and what can we say about how effective those treatments have been across the state? Another exciting research project that's just getting going with some colleagues in the Watershed Sciences program is looking at how forest management can reduce the potential risk to downstream reservoirs because after fire, a lot of times after severe fire, there's a risk of debris flow and erosion that leads to sedimentation into streams and rivers, which then can infill reservoirs. And so Utah being a really dry state, we depend heavily on those reservoirs. So we're looking at how can we treat forests in upper watersheds to reduce the risk to those reservoirs. So that's ongoing research that I'm pretty excited about. But we don't have results yet, but we're working actively on it.
Well, with the conditions we're in now, with the dryness, and we've had a lot of wind, and the really warm temperatures, I assume there's a likelihood we're going to have a summer of fires up and down the state.
I think you're right. I think that we are set up for a big fire year. I think, a couple things to remember are that even though fire can be beneficial for ecosystems, we still want to encourage everyone to be careful with fire. So we don't want human-started fire. we don't want fires burning in the most hot, dry, windy conditions because those are less likely to have beneficial effects. And then the third thing is, I guess, when you see fires in the news and you see flames burning, I guess the last point is that it's not necessarily a bad thing. What we're trying to avoid, again, is damage to human communities. But in terms of the forest, as long as they're regenerating, we haven't actually lost forests. We've just returned them back to an earlier stage. So, yeah, kind of it's a complex topic where it's definitely, it's hard to even put it on one axis of good and bad, but we're trying to differentiate between what's good for ecosystems, what's bad for people, and how we can find the mix that works, for this world that we live in.
Well, again, this is an event involving Dr. Yokom tomorrow morning. So as we speak, it's Tuesday morning, 11:30. We'll also include a live question and answer session. Both these segments will be hosted through a Zoom link, which will be provided when you RSVP, and you can do that at the USU Research Landscapes website. Dr. Yokom, thanks so much for your time. We wish you the best on the event tomorrow and with your continuing research.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Let's get back to Jason and Bill now.
Thank you, Craig. Definitely something interesting to see. And research at Utah State University right here in our own backyard, again, playing a very key role in public policy, in all kinds of things, including dealing with our current drought situation. We'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Installing a metal roof has never been easier with the help of the folks at Metal Mart. Conveniently located in Lehigh and Logan, Metal Mart's sales force is ready to help you with metal roofing. Metal roofing adds immediate value to any roofing project. Whether it's a home, cabin, barn, or shed, you'll find great selection and value at Metal Mart. And metal roofing panels aren't just for roofs. These long-lasting panels are great for fences, siding panels, garden boxes, wall decor panels, interior wall panels, and so much more. With a selection to fit anyone's budget, you'll love the value you get when you install metal roofing from Metal Mart. So no matter if you're building a chicken coop or your dream home, Metal Mart has an amazing roofing solution for you. Call today and let Metal Mart help put a roofing package together that's perfect for you. Call today in Logan at 435-363-9001 and see why Metal Mart is everyone's metal store. Visit us online at metalmart.biz. Ask about our great selection of steel purlins as well. Save money. Call Metal Mart today.
My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home. I'm a better neighbor because my service has taught me how important it is to be a team player. My training helps me in my classes when I give attention to detail to the task at hand. My service in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my country safe from threats. Learn more about how you too can live and serve part-time by visiting NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Utah Army National Guard. Aired by the Utah Broadcasters Association and this station.
You shine a spotlight on something that's cool enough to turn your head. Here's the truck that will turn your head on the road if it hasn't already. It's the 2021 Ram 1500, and now's the time to buy. Call it the Ram Spotlight Sales Event all month at Heritage. Save up to $3,500 on 2021 Ram 1500 Bighorn Crew Cab, the Motor Trend Truck of the Year, 3 years running. No big deal, but actually it is a big deal at Heritage. Your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Heritage Auto Group. Heritage. It's what drives our future.
245 years ago, this great nation was born. From all of us at Hanson Motors in Brigham City, we join with you to extend a heartfelt thank you to the men and women of our armed forces for keeping us safe and ensuring that our nation remains the land of the free. As we remember our national heroes, may we renew our commitment to uphold the freedoms and unity we value so much as Americans. Happy 4th of July from Hanson Motors in Brigham City.
Procrastination isn't a valid retirement strategy. If your saving for a retirement approach involves the phrase, "I'll get around to it someday," it's time to make someday into today. Edward Jones can help. Contact your local Edward Jones financial advisor to get started today. Visit edwardjones.com or stop by your local Edward Jones office. When it comes to meeting your retirement goals, time can be on your side, and there's no better time than now. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
That's it for hour one of today's show, but stay tuned. Coming up in just a few minutes, kicking off hour two, highlights from the governor's monthly news conference in which the governor spells it out just why he called this the worst drought in 75 years here in Utah. Also, the Supreme Court clears the way for college athletes making money. It's a narrow win for athletes, but it basically opens the floodgates. We'll talk about what this could mean for even schools like USU.